In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Warhammer 40,000 is more than just a story. It is a vision of a universe defined by struggle, where every victory is fleeting and every empire is doomed to fall. It is a tale of vast galactic civilizations locked in an endless cycle of war, where gods and monsters walk among mortals, and where hope is a fragile thing, crushed beneath the weight of an uncaring cosmos. This is a universe without heroes, without salvation. It is a world where might makes right, where faith can be a shield or a weapon, and where the only certainty is conflict. And yet, despite, or perhaps because of its bleakness, Warhammer 40,000 has captured the imaginations of millions. It is a setting of extremes, where the boundaries between good and evil blur into insignificance. The oppressed and the oppressors are often one and the same, locked in an endless struggle where survival is the only measure of success. But why? What is it about this setting that draws us in? Perhaps it is the sheer scale of the universe, a place where entire worlds burn in the name of empires too vast to recognize the countless lives lost in their wars, where individuals are nothing more than forgotten footnotes in an unending history of conquest and destruction. Perhaps it is the stories of those who, despite the inevitability of their demise, fight on regardless. Or perhaps it is the sheer grandeur of it all, the towering citadels of the Imperium, the unfathomable horrors of chaos, the ancient legacies of the Eldar and the Necrons, the unrelenting tide of the Tyranids. There is something undeniably compelling about the vast Gothic nightmare that is Warhammer 40,000. At its core, Warhammer 40,000 is about endurance. It is about the struggle to survive in a universe that has already decided your fate. It is about the madness of unyielding faith and the heavy price of ambition. It is about the lure of power and the tragedy of civilizations doomed to repeat the mistakes of those that came before them. It is a tale of war, but more than that, it is a story of those who wage it, the soldiers who march without question, the commanders who bear the burden of strategy, the tyrants who rule through fear, and the rebels who dare to defy them. It is about the choices they make, the sacrifices they endure, and the legacies they leave behind. It is a universe where the walls between myth and reality have long since crumbled, where belief itself shapes the course of history. Legends are not mere stories but forces that dictate the fate of entire civilizations. The faith of the Imperium sustains the Emperor's divine presence, while the nightmares of the warp manifest as living horrors, fueled by the emotions of mortals. Where ancient prophecies shape the course of history, and where faith is as powerful a weapon as any gun or blade. In the Imperium, billions pray each day to the God Emperor, their voices lost in the endless murmur of devotion, their blind belief the only thing keeping them from despair. In the depths of the warp, the Chaos Gods feast on the emotions of the living, twisting the minds of those who stray too close to their grasp. And among the stars, the last remnants of dying civilizations fight to reclaim the glories of the past, even as the darkness of chaos and the ever-looming decay of time close in around them. The Eldar, once the undisputed rulers of the galaxy, now drift among the ruins of their fallen empire, desperately clinging to survival. The Necrons awaken from their tomb worlds, seeking to reforge their dominion over a galaxy that has long since forgotten them. Each battles not only against the horrors of the present, but also the ghosts of their past, their struggles, a reflection of a universe where nothing truly lasts. And so, we begin our journey into this world. Over the course of this series, we will explore the factions that shape the galaxy, the wars that have defined its history, and the dark forces that threaten to consume it. We will witness the rise and fall of empires, from the Imperium's desperate struggle to maintain order to the Necron's relentless bid to reclaim their ancient dominion. We will recount the endless battles fought in the name of forgotten causes, such as the blood-soaked trenches of the Sabbath World's crusade, or the doomed defiance of Cadia against the tides of chaos. And we will glimpse the ever-present shadow of the warp, lurking just beyond reality, shaping the fates of mortals and gods alike. We will dive into the stories of those who fight, who lead, and who suffer, those who in their own ways define this grim and brutal future. Let your thoughts wander as we journey into the boundless expanse of the far future, where the echoes of war shape every shadow and silence holds the weight of untold histories. There is much to uncover, much to understand, but for now, let the echoes of war fade into the distance, and let the silence of the void guide you forward. For in the 41st millennium, war is eternal, and nothing else remains. Chapter 1. The 41st Millennium. A galaxy in decay. The 41st Millennium. A time of endless war, where the Imperium of Man clings to survival, battered by enemies from within and without. For 10,000 years, humanity has fought to maintain its dominion over the stars. Once a rising force, its empire now crumbles, stretched thin across the vastness of the galaxy. Centuries of relentless warfare have bled its armies dry, while layers of bureaucracy stifle progress and innovation. Beset by alien threats, internal corruption, and the insidious influence of chaos, the Imperium teeters on the edge of collapse, its vastness now a burden rather than a strength. This is not an era of progress or enlightenment. It is an age of decay, where mankind does not advance, it merely endures. The Imperium spans millions of worlds, stretching from the core worlds at the heart of the galaxy to the farthest reaches of unexplored space. Each world is a fortress, a factory, or a feeding ground for the unceasing war effort. Hive worlds rise like monolithic tombs, their spires piercing the clouds, their slums festering below. Forge worlds burn with the fires of industry, churning out weapons, ships, and armor to feed the Imperium's insatiable hunger for war. Agri worlds, their vast plains stretching beyond the horizon, produce the food that sustains countless soldiers. And then there are the war zones, planets caught in endless battles, where life is measured in the span of a bolt around. To exist within the Imperium is to be part of a vast and unfeeling machine, though one's experience of it depends entirely on their station. For the countless laborers and soldiers, life is an unending cycle of toil and obedience, where individuality is a liability, and death is often the only escape. They are born into servitude, whether in the choking depths of hive cities, the assembly lines of forge worlds, or the blood-soaked trenches of a distant war zone. Their lives are spent in the service of an empire that does not know their names, and would not mourn their passing. Meanwhile, the nobility and ruling elite dwell in relative splendor, perched atop the suffering of the masses. Planetary governors, high-ranking officials, and rogue traders wield immense power, shaping the fate of worlds with a word. Yet even they are prisoners of the Imperium's rigid dogma, forced to walk the fine line between privilege and heresy. Those who grow too ambitious risk drawing the eye of the Inquisition, where a single whispered accusation can bring ruin upon entire dynasties. In the Imperium, no one is truly free, only degrees of servitude exist, and the ever-present threat of annihilation ensures that all, from the lowest worker to the highest lord, obey without question. Billions toil in endless servitude, their lives spent in factories, fields, and war zones, knowing nothing beyond their assigned purpose. The majority of Imperial citizens will never see the sky above their world, nor will they question their place in the grand hierarchy. The few who do are swiftly silenced, their existence erased by the brutal efficiency of the Adeptus Arbites, or the merciless judgment of the Inquisition. Knowledge itself is a dangerous thing, and in the Imperium, curiosity is often met with death. Yet for all its might, the Imperium is dying. Its rulers, the High Lords of Terror, govern not through wisdom, but through inertia. They are bound by tradition, their decrees enforced by blind faith and bureaucracy. The Emperor of mankind, the godlike figure upon whom all humanity places its faith, remains entombed within the golden throne, his body preserved but his will unknowable. His silence casts a shadow over the Imperium, forcing his followers to interpret his will through fragmented scripture and ancient doctrine. Without his direct guidance, power falls to the High Lords of Terror, whose conflicting ambitions and rigid dogma stagnate progress. The common citizens revere the Emperor as a divine being, yet they live under a rule of fear, where deviation from sanctioned beliefs invites swift retribution. His absence has not only shaped the Imperium's governance, but has also become its greatest source of turmoil. An empire held together by faith, but forever haunted by doubt. His Imperium, once a beacon of human progress, is now a monolithic, unyielding nightmare of oppression, its people trapped within a machine too vast to stop, too sacred to change. Beyond the Imperium, the galaxy is a war-ravaged battlefield. The forces of chaos rise from the depths of the warp, their legions of traitors and daemons, seeking to topple the Imperium and drown the galaxy in madness. The 13th Black Crusade, led by Abaddon the Despoiler, shattered the defenses of Cadia, unleashing a catastrophic warp storm that split the Imperium in two. Entire sectors were lost to chaos as demonic legions flooded into reality, consuming worlds in an orgy of slaughter and corruption. The Cicatrix Maledictum, a great warp rift that now divides the galaxy, stands as a grim monument to the unchecked power of the ruinous powers, a wound in the fabric of existence that may never heal. The Necrons, ancient and relentless, stir from their crypt worlds, determined to reclaim what was once theirs. The Orcs, a tide of endless destruction, rampage across the stars, their only desire to fight and conquer. The Eldar, a race clinging to the remnants of their shattered empire, weave through the threads of fate in a desperate bid for survival. And in the darkness beyond, the Tyranids, an insatiable hunger-given form, consume everything in their path, leaving nothing but barren husks in their wake. At the heart of this chaos lies the Great Rift, a tear in reality that has split the Imperium in two. It is a wound in the fabric of the galaxy, a chasm from which the warp spills forth unchecked. Entire sectors have been lost to madness, swallowed by demonic incursions and heretical uprisings. Travel and communication across the Imperium have become treacherous, and for those stranded on the wrong side of the rift, the galaxy has become a much darker place. They call this sundered half of the Imperium Nihilus, the Dark Imperium, a realm where the Emperor's light flickers and the forces of chaos reign unchecked. Technology, once mankind's greatest weapon, is now little more than a relic of a forgotten past. The Adeptus Mechanicus, the self-proclaimed keepers of knowledge, treat technology as sacred scripture rather than a tool to be understood. The loss of standard template constructs, or STCs, has condemned humanity to stagnation. Once the Imperium could construct entire fleets with ease, but now even the simplest machines are maintained through ritual and superstition. To question these methods is heresy, and so innovation is stifled in favor of blind obedience. And then there is the warp, the roiling sea of madness that underpins reality. It is from this realm that psychers draw their power, bending the fabric of existence to their will. It is also the domain of the chaos gods, who feed on the emotions of mortals, shaping their dominion with the fears, desires, and hatred of the living. To travel the stars, the Imperium must navigate this ever-shifting abyss, relying on the talents of navigators to guide their ships safely through the storm. But warp travel is perilous, for the entities that lurk within are always watching, always waiting. Many ships set out on journeys that should take weeks, only to emerge centuries later, their crews long dead or twisted beyond recognition. This instability fractures supply lines, strands entire battle fleets, and isolates planets that depend on reinforcements. The Imperium's vast bureaucracy struggles to adapt, forced to maintain an unrelenting war effort. Despite the unpredictability of warp travel, whole campaigns are fought for worlds long lost, their defenders having perished decades before aid can arrive, while fresh forces are deployed to reinforce positions that have already crumbled into dust. The fall of Cadia stands as a grim testament to this reality, its defenders holding out against the overwhelming tides of chaos for as long as humanly possible, only for the planet itself to be torn apart as reinforcements arrived too late to make a difference. Elsewhere, on worlds such as Krieg, entire generations of soldiers are raised to reclaim irradiated wastelands, their battles fought long after the original war was deemed lost. These conflicts, waged across centuries, epitomize the Imperium's brutal inefficiency, its armies locked in an eternal cycle of reclaiming what has already been destroyed. The dangers of the warp extend beyond mere travel. Psychers, those mortals attuned to the warp's energies, walk a thin line between power and oblivion. Their abilities can level cities, or tear open the fabric of reality itself, inviting demonic horrors into the material world. Across the Imperium, Psychers are viewed with both reverence and suspicion. The black ships of the Imperium scour human worlds, gathering thousands of these gifted individuals to be sacrificed, their souls fueling the Astronomicon, the beacon that allows ships to navigate the warp. Those deemed too dangerous are subjected to the harsh judgment of the Inquisition, or condemned to the life of a sanctioned battle psyker, their fate one of slow, inevitable corruption. This is the setting of Warhammer 40,000, a universe on the precipice of oblivion, where war is the only constant and the dream of peace has long since turned to dust. There are no great saviors, no promises of a better future, yet across the galaxy, countless factions claim dominion, each believing themselves the rightful rulers, or the last hope for survival. The Imperium fights on in the name of the Emperor, convinced of its divine right to rule. The forces of chaos seek to reshape reality in their own image, promising power and freedom, at an unimaginable cost. The Eldar, burdened by ancient prophecy, struggle to avert their race's extinction, while the Tau preach unity under the greater good. But in the end, none can halt the inevitable tide of war. There is only the struggle to survive, to fight for one more day, and in the 41st millennium, even that is uncertain. Chapter 2. The Imperium of Man, an empire of war and faith. The Imperium of Man, a monolithic colossus stretching across the stars, its influence reaching into every corner of known space. It spans millions of worlds and rules over uncounted trillions of human lives, each one subject to its unyielding will. It is the greatest empire mankind has ever known, yet it is not a paradise of progress, nor a beacon of enlightenment. It is an empire of stagnation and oppression, where technology is revered as divine, where knowledge is restricted, and where obedience is the only law that matters. It is a place where survival is not a right, but a privilege, granted only to those who serve without question and fight without hesitation. Those who refuse to serve, who falter in their duties, or who speak against the Imperium face swift and brutal retribution. Some are conscripted by force, thrown into the meat grinder of the Astra Militarum, with no training and little chance of survival. Others are sentenced to penal legions, used as disposable shock troops in battles where victory is measured in bodies, not tactics. The truly unfortunate are condemned to servitude, their lives spent in toil aboard labor barges, deep within the manufactorums, or even worse, as servitors lobotomized and turned into mindless, mechanical slaves. So for those who rebel, who dare to question the will of the Imperium, there is only one fate: execution, carried out without hesitation, ensuring that their defiance is erased from existence. In the Imperium, loyalty is not a virtue, it is the only means of survival. At the heart of the Imperium is the Emperor of Mankind, the immortal ruler who once led humanity into a golden age of conquest and unity. But that age is long past. Now the Emperor sits upon the golden throne, a withered husk sustained by arcane machinery, his will unknowable, his voice silent. For 10,000 years, he has neither spoken nor acted, yet his worship fuels the Imperium's very existence. To most, he is a god, an infallible deity, who protects mankind from the horrors of the galaxy, an image carefully cultivated and enforced by the ecclesiarchy. Though his worship began as a way to unify humanity, over millennia it has evolved into a state-mandated faith, where deviation is met with severe punishment. The common people do not question his divinity, for to do so is to invite execution, and even those who secretly harbor doubts dare not voice them aloud. To the few who understand the truth, inquisitors, certain high lords of terror, and the Emperor's own Adeptus Custodes, he is a necessary corpse, a symbol without whom the Imperium would collapse entirely. His physical form may remain entombed within the Imperial Palace on Terra, but his influence stretches across the entire galaxy, shaping the fate of humanity. Even in his eternal silence, governance of the Imperium falls to the High Lords of Terra, a shadowy assembly of the most powerful individuals in human society. These figures rule in the Emperor's name, issuing edicts and decrees that determine the fate of entire star systems. The Adeptus Administratum, a sprawling bureaucracy, ensures that the wheels of this galactic empire continue to turn, albeit at a glacial pace, burdened by inefficiency and corruption. It is a system designed to endure, not to improve, and it has done so for 10 millennia, at the cost of countless lives and unimaginable suffering. Beneath the High Lords are countless institutions, each with its own rigid hierarchy, political rivalries, and ideological dogmas. The ecclesiarchy, the Church of the Emperor, ensures that faith in the God Emperor never wavers, preaching his divinity to the masses, and punishing heresy with fire and steel. The Adeptus Mechanicus, a machine cult that worships technology as sacred, hoards knowledge, and enforces dogmatic rituals to maintain ancient devices it no longer fully understands. Among their most revered artifacts are the standard template constructs (STCs), remnants of humanity's lost golden age of innovation. These devices, capable of effortlessly producing entire industries' worth of technology, have become objects of religious devotion, sought after with an almost fanatical zeal. The Adeptus Mechanicus will wage wars, burn worlds, and sacrifice entire populations to recover even a fragment of an STC, believing that within these lost blueprints lies the key to reclaiming humanity's past greatness. Yet, paradoxically, their own dogma forbids them from true innovation, ensuring that even if such knowledge were rediscovered, it would be shrouded in ritual rather than applied with understanding. The Adeptus Arbites serve as enforcers of imperial law, maintaining absolute order through brutal suppression, ensuring that the Imperium's rigid structure never bends. Nowhere was their unyielding authority more evident than in the aftermath of the Garman siege, where an entire hive city rose in rebellion against its planetary governor. In response, the Arbites deployed enforcers in full riot gear, locking down entire districts, executing dissidents en masse, and indiscriminately purging suspected agitators. Millions perished, and the hive city was left in ruins. Yet order was restored, at least in the eyes of the Imperium. To the Arbites, law is not a matter of fairness or morality, but of absolute adherence. Whether through planetary lockdowns, public executions, or mass purges, they ensure that defiance is crushed before it can spread. Each of these institutions wields immense power, yet none are capable of true reform. For to change is to risk unraveling the entire system. But the Imperium is not merely a vast political entity, it is a war machine, and its survival is ensured through ceaseless conflict. At its forefront stand the Adeptus Astartes, the legendary space marines, genetically enhanced warriors clad in power armor, each one a living weapon designed for war. They are the Emperor's angels of death, deployed to crush rebellion, annihilate Xenos threats, and wage the endless war that defines human existence. Yet they are few, far too few to protect the Imperium alone. Thus the bulk of the fighting falls to the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, an army of uncounted billions, drawn from every corner of the Imperium. These men and women, armed with little more than faith and lasguns, are the true defenders of mankind. Their sacrifices measured not in victories, but in how long they can hold the line before they are inevitably overwhelmed. Dace, while the Astra Militarum fight and die in their billions, the Imperial Navy ensures humanity's dominance among the stars. Mighty warships, each a floating cathedral of destruction, patrol the void, engaging in battles that can last for months, even years. These colossal vessels are both weapons of war and relics of a bygone era, for the knowledge to construct new ships is scarce, and each loss weakens the Imperium's grip on the galaxy. The vastness of space ensures that no war can ever truly be won, only endured as ships are lost to the warp, to enemy fleets, or to the slow decay of time itself. While the shipyards of Mars and other forge worlds labor endlessly to replace these losses, the rate of production can never match the unrelenting attrition of war. Some vessels are thousands of years old, their machine spirits barely functioning, yet they remain vital to the Imperium's desperate struggle for survival. The tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus labor ceaselessly to maintain these relics of war, performing sacred rites and complex rituals to appease the machine spirits that dwell within. Without true understanding of the ancient technology they tend, they rely on superstition and prayer as much as repair and engineering. Entire forge worlds dedicate themselves to the restoration of these mighty warships, salvaging broken components from forgotten battlefields, and reassembling them through centuries of painstaking effort. Each vessel that returns to service is a testament to the Imperium's resilience, though the cost in resources and lives is staggering. Entire fleets disappear into the void, their fates unknown, while others are forced into battle with centuries-old damage barely repaired. The loss of each ship is not merely a tactical setback, it is an irreplaceable wound, further straining an empire already teetering on the brink. While the Imperium's vast industrial world strive to replace these ships, the sheer scale of war ensures that demand always outpaces supply. Priority is given to critical war zones, those deemed essential to the Imperium's continued survival, while less strategic sectors are left to fend for themselves, sometimes falling into ruin without reinforcement. Many commanders are forced to rely on ancient, barely operational vessels patched together through desperate repairs, their machine spirits resentful, and their capabilities diminished. As the centuries pass, more ships are lost than can be replaced, and entire sectors of space grow dark, their fleets gone, their worlds abandoned to the tides of war. Even below these primary forces exist countless specialized branches of the Imperium's military, each serving a vital but often overlooked role. The Death Watch, an elite brotherhood of space marines drawn from various chapters, stands as the Imperium's first and last line of defense against the alien threat. Their expertise in Xenos warfare, combined with advanced weaponry and knowledge forbidden to most, allows them to combat dangers that would otherwise go unchecked. Meanwhile, the Grey Knights, a secretive chapter of space marines with psychic abilities, exist for one purpose alone: the eradication of chaos. Clad in silver armor and immune to the corrupting influence of the warp, they fight battles that few will ever know, waging a never-ending war against daemons and sorcerers that threaten to unravel reality itself. The Officio Assassinorum, a secretive and elite order, dispatches genetically enhanced and cybernetically modified killers to eliminate threats too dangerous or politically sensitive for open warfare. The Adeptus Custodes, the golden-clad warriors of the Emperor's personal guard, stand vigilant over the Imperial Palace on Terra, their numbers few but their skill unmatched by any other force in the galaxy. The Sisters of Battle, the militant arm of the Ecclesiarchy, purge heretics with righteous zeal, their faith granting them a terrifying resilience in battle. Beneath these great military forces lurks another shadowy power: the Inquisition. The Imperium's secret enforcers, the Inquisition has absolute authority to root out heresy, corruption and treason, wherever they may be found. They answer to no one but themselves, wielding a power so absolute that entire worlds have been reduced to ash at their command. To be accused by the Inquisition is to be condemned, for there is no justice in their trials, only the certainty of guilt and the inevitability of death. The Inquisition itself is fractured, divided into factions that wage their own secret wars against one another, some advocating for greater control,
others pushing for purges so extreme that they border on insanity. The most infamous of these conflicts is the internal strife between the Puritan and radical factions, an ideological war fought in the shadows. Puritans, such as the monodominants, seek absolute eradication of heresy, believing no cost is too high to preserve the Imperium's purity. Radicals, on the other hand, employ forbidden knowledge, Xenos artifacts, and even the powers of chaos itself to combat humanity's enemies. The war between these factions has shaped the Imperium's history in ways few realize, with assassinations, secret purges, and entire war zones erupting as a result of their clandestine battles. One of the most infamous examples is the Moirai Schism, a devastating ideological conflict that split the Inquisition and nearly tore apart the Adeptus Mechanicus. Radical factions sought to integrate warp-based technologies, believing them to be the key to humanity's survival, while Puritans viewed such practices as an unforgivable heresy. This shadow war led to centuries of covert assassinations, mass executions, and the excommunication of entire forge worlds, many of which were either annihilated or cast into the abyss of history. Though the conflict officially ended, its echoes still reverberate through the Inquisition, influencing the hidden wars fought in the Emperor's name to this day. In this galaxy, even those who fight to preserve humanity often do so at the cost of countless lives. This is the Imperium of Man, a vast and unyielding dominion, built upon the bones of the countless dead, ruled in the name of a silent god, and driven by a war that will never end. It is an empire too large to truly govern, too bloated to ever change, and too blind to see its own slow march toward ruin. And yet, despite it all, it endures, not because it is strong, not because it is just, but because there is no other choice. To falter, to doubt, to question, is to invite destruction, for war is the only certainty in the Imperium, and hesitation is a luxury it cannot afford. And so, the Imperium fights on, for there is nothing else left for it to do. The war is unending, a cycle that has long since consumed any hope of peace or progress. As the centuries grind forward, the question remains, will the Imperium endure through sheer stubbornness, or is it already doomed, merely awaiting the final blow that will bring its inevitable collapse?
Chapter 3: The Chaos Threat, the Corruption of Reality. The Warp, a realm of madness, where reality is shaped by emotion and thought, where time twists and turns in impossible ways, and where nightmares take form. It is a place beyond mortal comprehension, a roiling sea of psychic energy that exists beneath and alongside real space. To most of the Imperium's citizens, the warp is little more than a necessary tool, an unseen force that allows interstellar travel and communication. Yet this ignorance is no accident. The ecclesiarchy preaches that the warp is the divine realm of the Emperor, a holy void through which only the righteous may pass. The Imperium's strict dogma ensures that knowledge of its true nature is forbidden, and to question this doctrine is heresy. The Inquisition ensures that those who uncover too much meet swift and merciless ends, their existence erased to prevent the spread of dangerous truths. For the common citizen, fear and blind faith are their only shields against the horrors that lurk beyond reality. But to those who understand its true nature, the warp is a malevolent abyss, a realm of endless horror, home to entities so vast and powerful that they can shatter entire civilizations with but a whisper. The greatest of these entities are the Chaos Gods, ancient, immortal beings born from the emotions and desires of mortals. They are not bound by the laws of the material universe, nor do they possess mercy or restraint. They are the personification of excess, hunger, decay, and ambition, each a dark reflection of mortal nature, warring for dominion over the galaxy. Their power is boundless, and their influence is eternal, seeping into the minds of mortals, corrupting even the strongest of wills. Khorne, the blood god, embodies rage, war, and slaughter. He is the lord of battle, the patron of warriors who crave nothing but endless combat. His followers, clad in crimson and bronze, offer blood in his name, reveling in the carnage of war. Khorne despises sorcery, for he sees it as a coward's weapon, a means of circumventing the purity of battle. To him, there is no greater act than to kill, and no greater sin than to refuse a fight. His influence extends beyond his daemonic legions, shaping entire cultures and civilizations. Gladiatorial arenas dedicated to Khorne dot countless worlds, where blood is shed in his honor, and warriors prove their worth through combat alone. His followers wage wars of annihilation, forsaking diplomacy and strategy in favor of brute strength, ensuring that only the most ruthless survive. Planets consumed by his wrath are left as nothing but charred wastelands, littered with the skulls of the fallen, tributes to his unquenchable thirst for blood. His domain within the warp is an endless battlefield, where rivers of blood flow, and the echoes of war never cease. The strong thrive in his presence, while the weak are crushed underfoot, reduced to nothing but skulls adorning his towering throne. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, is the god of fate, ambition, and sorcery. He is the master of deception, the weaver of schemes so intricate that even his own followers cannot grasp their true purpose. Those who seek knowledge, power, or forbidden secrets often find themselves in his grasp, their souls twisted by the endless pursuit of understanding. Tzeentch's realm is ever-shifting, a labyrinth of impossible architecture, where every choice leads to more questions, and every path is a deception. His champions wield eldritch magics, their bodies mutating under his influence, becoming grotesque reflections of his ever-changing nature. Sorcerers who pledge themselves to Tzeentch find their minds flooded with visions, their flesh reshaped into ever-shifting forms, their destinies forever entwined in an unseen grand design. Nurgle, the Plague Father, is the god of disease, decay, and despair. He is a being of paradox, both the bringer of suffering and the god of resilience. His followers welcome his gifts, their bodies bloated and rotting, yet filled with unnatural vitality. To serve Nurgle is to accept the inevitability of death, to embrace the comfort of entropy, to find joy in the decay of all things. His touch spreads across the galaxy, in the form of the dreaded Nurgle's rot, a disease that defies cure, turning the afflicted into willing servants of his festering domain. His gardens within the warp overflow with life in a grotesque parody of nature, where flesh blooms with pestilence, and despair is met with laughter. Those who fall to Nurgle's embrace find themselves paradoxically comforted, their pain dulled, their suffering transformed into grotesque joy. Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, is the god of excess, indulgence, and sensation. Born from the excesses of the Eldar, Slaanesh is a being of endless desire, drawing mortals into his embrace, with promises of pleasure beyond imagining. To serve Slaanesh is to surrender to obsession, to push the boundaries of experience, until pain and ecstasy become indistinguishable. His followers, clad in silks and armed with wicked blades,
fight not for conquest, but for the thrill of sensation, seeking new heights of indulgence in an unending spiral of decadence. His domain in the warp is an intoxicating realm of beauty and horror, where pleasure and torment blend into one, and where those who enter may never wish to leave. The allure of Slaanesh is as subtle as it is overwhelming, turning even the most disciplined warriors into willing thralls, their souls consumed by their own unchecked desires. Together, these gods form the pantheon of chaos, their influence stretching into every corner of the galaxy. They do not act directly, for even they are bound by the formless nature of the warp. Instead, they work through mortal champions, corrupting minds, raising armies, and bending reality to their will. Their greatest servants are the Chaos Space Marines, once noble warriors of the Imperium, now corrupted beyond redemption. These traitors, armed with the finest war gear of a bygone era, wage an eternal war against the Emperor's realm, seeking to unmake the very fabric of the Imperium. Each Chaos Legion follows its own dark path, from the bloodthirsty World Eaters, who have abandoned reason for slaughter, to the Thousand Suns, cursed to an eternity of mutation and magical torment. The World Eaters, once noble warriors, have wholly succumbed to the Butcher's nails, cybernetic implants that strip them of all restraint, turning them into frenzied killing machines. Their campaigns are marked by brutal massacres, leaving entire planets drenched in blood as offerings to Khorne. The Thousand Suns, on the other hand, are victims of their own ambition. Their relentless pursuit of sorcerous power led to the rubric of Ahriman, a catastrophic spell that turned most of their brethren into dust-locked suits of armor. Now, only their most potent sorcerers remain unscathed, leading legions of mindless, spectral warriors in their quest for forbidden knowledge. The Night Lords spread terror wherever they go, while the Death Guard march unyielding through the most horrific of war zones, their rotting bodies immune to pain or fear. But chaos is more than just gods and warriors. It is a creeping corruption, a force that can turn the most faithful into heretics, the most noble into monsters. Cults devoted to chaos fester in the underbelly of imperial society, whispering blasphemies in the darkness, waiting for the moment to rise. Some seek power, others seek freedom from the Imperium's suffocating rule, but all are unwitting pawns in the great game of the dark gods. From the twisted Genstealer cults that unknowingly served such schemes to the plague-ridden masses, who embrace Nurgle's gifts, chaos finds a way into every heart, every world, and every empire. Yet the true horror of chaos is not in its armies or its demons. Unlike the Imperium, which enforces order through oppression and blind faith, chaos seeps into the hearts of mortals, offering the illusion of freedom and power, while slowly consuming all who embrace it. Where the Imperium rules through fear and rigidity, chaos spreads through temptation and corruption, turning the strong into zealots and the weak into pawns. It is not merely a force of destruction, but of transformation, reshaping entire civilizations in its wake, leaving behind only madness and ruin. It is in its insidious nature, its ability to corrupt, to twist the mind and soul. No world is beyond its reach, no man or woman truly immune. It is the shadow lurking in the heart of every mortal, the whisper that promises power, vengeance, or salvation. It is the doom of empires, the end of all things, and it will never stop. For as long as there is ambition, as long as there is war, as long as there is life, chaos will thrive.
Chapter 4. The Xenos Threat. Enemies of the Imperium. The Imperium of Man stands alone, against a galaxy teeming with horrors. While the forces of chaos seek to corrupt and consume, the Xenos races of the universe present an equally dire threat. They are not merely obstacles to humanity's dominion. They are ancient empires, relentless predators, and insidious infiltrators, each seeking to carve out their own destiny at mankind's expense. From the noble but ultimately self-serving Eldari to the mindless hunger of the Tyranids, the Imperium's survival depends on an unending war against alien threats that seek to dismantle all that humanity has built. The Eldari, the fallen empire. The Eldari, once rulers of the stars, now stand as a fractured remnant of their former glory. They are an ancient race, elegant and deadly, whose civilization crumbled under the weight of its own decadence. The birth of Slaanesh shattered their empire, and now they drift through the galaxy as nomads aboard their colossal craft worlds, vast city ships that house the last remnants of their people. Their survival depends on their mastery of the webway, a labyrinthine network of hidden passages outside real space, allowing them to travel vast distances while avoiding many of the dangers of the warp. However, the webway itself is not invulnerable. Its delicate structure can be breached, leading to catastrophic collapses that could strand entire craft worlds or expose them to the horrors of the warp. One of the most devastating examples of such an event was the fall of the Eldar outpost on Belial 4, where a massive warp incursion ruptured a section of the webway, allowing demonic forces to flood through and consume entire Eldari enclaves. The resulting catastrophe severed vital routes, leading to the permanent isolation and destruction of countless Eldari settlements, a grim reminder of the fragility of their once mighty dominion. The Imperium, Chaos forces, and even the Necrons have sought to exploit this vulnerability, further threatening the fragile existence of the Eldari. This reliance grants them both an advantage and a vulnerability, for while they can strike with precision and vanish without a trace, the destruction of key webway gates could trap entire craft worlds, dooming them to annihilation. The Eldari are master manipulators, weaving through fate with an arrogance that only a race as old as time can possess. Though they sometimes ally with the Imperium against common threats, their motives are always self-serving, and to trust them is to invite betrayal. The Drukhari, their dark kin, are even more dangerous. Sadistic raiders who dwell in the webway city of Camorra, they descend upon worlds like specters, abducting entire populations to be tormented for eternity in their nightmarish gladiatorial arenas. To the Drukhari, suffering is an art, and they are its undisputed masters. Their warriors are swift and merciless, utilizing advanced weaponry to inflict the maximum amount of pain. They do not conquer or hold territory. They strike from the shadows, steal what they need, and vanish without a trace, leaving nothing but horror in their wake. Some whisper that the Drukhari's cruelty is not mere sadism, but a desperate necessity, as they must feed on the suffering of others to stave off the soul thirst of Slaanesh. This unquenchable hunger shapes every aspect of their society, where only the most ruthless and cunning can rise to power. Within the twisted spires of Camorra, cabals wage endless wars of intrigue, assassination, and betrayal, each vying for dominance, while ensuring their supply of agony remains abundant. To show weakness is to invite annihilation, for the laws of Camorra are written in blood, and those who falter are consumed by their own kind. Even the ruling archons are not immune to treachery, their thrones secured only by a delicate balance of terror and control. Power in Camorra is fleeting, as betrayals and coups are commonplace, with new rulers rising and falling in an endless cycle of deception. The slightest sign of weakness invites challenges, and many archons have been overthrown by their own lieutenants, assassinated in elaborate plots, or dragged into the arenas they once commanded. Only those with unmatched cunning and cruelty can hope to maintain their grip on power for long. A prime example is Asdrubal Vecht, the master of Camorra, who rose from a lowly slave to become the supreme ruler of the Dark City. Through deception, ruthless cunning, and the extermination of his rivals, Vecht overthrew the noble houses that once ruled Camorra and established his own iron-fisted dominion. His story serves as both a testament to the Drukhari's brutal hierarchy and a warning to all archons that even the mightiest can fall to treachery. Thus, the Drukhari's need to feed is not just a means of survival, it is the fuel that drives their entire civilization, a never-ending cycle of cruelty and ambition. The Orcs, the Green Tide, in stark contrast to the Eldari. The Orcs are a race of unrelenting violence, creatures born for war and reveling in destruction. They are not an empire in the traditional sense, nor do they seek conquest for the sake of rule. Orcs exist to fight, to destroy, and to grow stronger through conflict. Their society is one of brutal hierarchy, where might makes right, and the biggest, strongest war bosses lead their rampaging hordes across the stars. They spread like a plague, their spores taking root in conquered worlds, ensuring that an orc-infested planet is never truly cleansed. The Imperium has waged countless wars against them, yet no victory is ever final. For so long as there are orcs, there will be war. The sheer resilience of the orcs makes them one of the most frustrating enemies to combat. Even when defeated, their wreckage fuels future conflicts, as surviving orcs grow stronger, bigger, and more cunning, ensuring the cycle of war never ends. Some orc warbands, such as those led by legendary warlords like Ghazghkull Thraka, have amassed armies so vast that entire sectors have fallen to their relentless Wolga, an all-consuming tide of destruction that sweeps across the galaxy, leaving nothing but ruins in its wake. Scholars of the Adeptus Mechanicus speculate that orcs have a subconscious psychic field that allows their crude technology to function, and their reality to bend to their collective will, making them far deadlier than mere brute force alone. The Necrons, the awakening doom. Then there are the Necrons, an ancient and terrifying race that predates even the Eldari. Once flesh and blood beings, the Necrontyrs sacrificed their mortality to become undying machines, encased in living metal shells, their consciousness trapped within cold, soulless bodies. For millions of years, they slumbered beneath the sands of forgotten worlds, their tombs hidden from time. Now they rise again, awakening in ever greater numbers, seeking to reclaim the galaxy they once ruled. The Necrons are not driven by hunger or ideology. They are beings of calculated purpose, their dynasties led by ruthless overlords, who view the lesser races as nothing more than vermin to be exterminated. Their technology is incomprehensible to the Imperium, their weapons capable of reducing entire armies to dust in an instant. Some Necron dynasties seek the restoration of their former empire, while others experiment with reality itself, tampering with the fabric of existence
in ways that defy mortal understanding. The Saracen dynasty, once the ruling elite of the Necron race, seeks to re-establish their dominion with cold precision, wielding technology that warps time and space itself. Meanwhile, the Nihilak dynasty hoards arcane knowledge, conducting esoteric experiments on the fundamental forces of reality, reshaping matter, and attempting to unravel the mysteries of the cosmos. Their ambitions extend beyond mere conquest. They seek to impose absolute order upon a galaxy they see as fractured and chaotic, reforging existence according to their own inscrutable designs. Some among them, like the enigmatic Silent King, seem to hold a greater purpose, one that even the Imperium's greatest minds cannot yet fathom. Once the supreme ruler of the Necron race, the Silent King disappeared into the void, after leading his people in their transformation into machine bodies. Now he has returned, his motives shrouded in mystery. While some believe he seeks to reunite the Necron dynasties under a single banner and reclaim their lost empire, others suspect his ambitions extend far beyond simple conquest. His actions suggest a deep concern for the growing Tyranid threat, hinting that he may be one of the few beings in the galaxy who understands the true scale of the danger they represent. Whether he intends to save the galaxy or rule it remains unknown, but his return heralds a new chapter in the ancient machinations of the Necron race. The Tyranids, the great devourer. The Tyranids, however, represent a threat unlike any other. They are not an empire, nor a civilization. They are the great devourer, a vast intergalactic swarm of biomechanical horrors, driven by an insatiable hunger to consume all organic matter. Guided by the hive mind, the Tyranids descend upon worlds in great waves, stripping entire planets down to barren rock before moving on to the next feeding ground. They are ever evolving, adapting to every weapon and strategy the Imperium employs against them. Where the Tyranids pass, nothing remains. They are the end of all things, a force beyond reason or negotiation, and perhaps the greatest existential threat the galaxy has ever known. The Imperium can only slow their advance, never truly stop them. Every encounter with the Tyranids leads to greater horrors, as new bioforms emerge, shaped by the knowledge gleaned from their fallen prey. The largest of their swarms, such as Hive Fleet Leviathan, have already consumed entire sectors, leaving only silence in their wake. The Imperium has waged desperate campaigns to hold back these ravenous invaders, with the Battle of Macraig standing as one of the most infamous conflicts in Imperial history. There the Ultramarines faced the full fury of Hive Fleet Behemoth, fighting to the last man to protect their fortress monastery. The first company, the most elite warriors of the chapter, was entirely wiped out in a last stand within the polar defense fortresses, buying precious time for the rest of the Ultramarines to regroup. In the depths of the ice-choked strongholds, Terminator-clad veterans held back wave after wave of Tyranid monstrosities, their storm bolters and power fists barely enough to stem the tide. Though the Ultramarines ultimately repelled the invasion, it was a Pyrrhic victory, one that left scars on their chapter that would take centuries to heal. The battle served as a grim reminder that even the Imperium's greatest defenders could only stand against the Tyranid tide for so long before they, too, were consumed. There the Ultramarines faced the full fury of the Tyranid onslaught, barely managing to repel Hive Fleet Behemoth at an unimaginable cost. Their first company was utterly annihilated, their fortress monastery nearly overrun, and their forces stretched to the breaking point. Even in victory, the Imperium could only hold the line, never truly stopping the Tyranid tide, only delaying its inevitable return. Each encounter with the Great Devourer pushes humanity closer to the brink, a war of attrition, where every loss weakens the Imperium, while the Tyranids only grow stronger. Some fear that what has already arrived is merely the vanguard of a far larger force still approaching the galaxy from beyond the void. Imperial strategists within the Ordo Xenos have debated the possibility that the current Tyranid incursions are mere scouting tendrils, testing the galaxy's defenses before the true swarm arrives. Some radical thinkers within the Imperium propose drastic measures, exterminating entire planets to starve the approaching hive fleets of biomass, while others seek desperate alliances with unlikely factions to combat the overwhelming tide. Among these potential allies, the Eldari stand as the most controversial choice, as their knowledge of the warp and advanced foresight could provide crucial strategic advantages, yet centuries of betrayal make trust nearly impossible. Some inquisitors argue that even the Tau, with their advanced technology and disciplined military, could serve as temporary allies in mutual defense, though such cooperation would be seen as heresy by the Imperium's more zealous factions. Even more radical minds suggest using chaos-tainted forces as a weapon against the Tyranids, reasoning that the insatiable hunger of the hive mind might be turned against the demonic entities of the warp. Yet, to ally with Xenos, or the forces of the Immaterium, is to risk corruption and condemnation, a choice that few within the Imperium would dare make openly. For now, such discussions remain in the shadows, spoken only by those willing to risk the wrath of the Inquisition. Despite these grim theories, the Imperium has no definitive answer, only the certainty that should an even greater Tyranid force descend upon the galaxy, humanity's survival may hang by a thread. The endless war. These are but a few of the Xenos horrors that threaten humanity's survival. There are countless other races lurking in the void, each with their own designs upon the galaxy. Some, like the Ginstealer cults, work in the shadows, infiltrating imperial worlds in preparation for the coming of their Tyranid masters. Others, like the Enslavers, are eldritch parasites that infest the minds of psychers, using them as gateways to unleash horrors beyond imagination. The Hurid, a mysterious and largely unseen race, warp time itself as they move, their presence causing accelerated decay wherever they dwell. The Rakgol, savage Xenos marauders, thrive on mindless slaughter, their raids leaving only death and ruin in their wake. Encountered primarily in the dark fringes of the Coronis expanse and beyond, they emerge from the void in crude, heavily armed warships, tearing through isolated human colonies with brutal efficiency. Unlike other Xenos, the Rakgol show no interest in conquest or resource acquisition. They exist only to kill. Their society built around endless cycles of slaughter and bloodshed. Their attacks are unpredictable, their numbers unknown, and their motives beyond comprehension, an ever-present menace lurking in the uncharted depths of space. Attempts by the Ordo Xenos to study the Rakgol have yielded little, as any efforts at communication have been met with immediate and violent hostility. Some scholars theorize that the Rakgol operate under a form of decentralized anarchy, driven by primal instinct rather than structured command. However, occasional instances of coordinated strikes and the use of advanced tactics suggest the possibility of an unknown guiding intelligence. Reports from survivors of Rakgol attacks have noted patterns in their raids, with certain groups exhibiting strategic target selection and unnerving efficiency, contradicting the idea of mindless slaughter. Whether this is the result of a higher ruling caste or a yet undiscovered force orchestrating their movements remains a chilling mystery to the Imperium. Others believe there may be an unknown intelligence guiding their seemingly mindless slaughter, an aspect of their species yet to be uncovered. Whatever the truth, the Imperium remains in the dark, forced to react to their raids without understanding the deeper threat they may pose. The galaxy is vast, and its dangers are endless. The Imperium of Man stands against all of them, unyielding in its belief that humanity alone has the right to rule the stars. It wages war on all fronts, its armies stretched thin against the tides of alien threats that seek to consume it. Yet, for all its strength, the Imperium is but one force against an entire universe of enemies. It is a war without end, a battle that can never truly be won. But for the Imperium, there is no other option. To relent, to show weakness, is to invite annihilation. And so, the war against the Xenos rages on, for as long as humanity endures.
And so we reach the end of this chapter in our exploration of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. But in truth, there is no end, only the unrelenting march of time and the ceaseless churn of war. The Imperium stands, battered and bleeding, its vast empire held together by faith, bureaucracy, and the unyielding sacrifice of its countless citizens. It is a colossus, mighty beyond measure, yet crumbling beneath its own weight, beset on all sides by enemies, both seen and unseen. We have journeyed through the Imperium's oppressive dominion, where survival is a privilege and obedience is absolute. We have glimpsed the horrors of chaos, a force that twists both flesh and soul, consuming entire worlds with whispers of power and damnation. We have stared into the cold, calculating eyes of the Xenos, each with their own ambitions, each seeking their own place in a galaxy already drowning in blood. And we have seen the desperate struggle of mankind, locked in an endless war that has long since lost any hope of victory. There is no peace, there is no respite, there is only war. The future of the Imperium is uncertain, its survival hanging by a thread. Every battle fought is but a momentary reprieve, every victory overshadowed by the wars yet to come. The enemies of mankind are vast and unrelenting, their numbers without end. The drums of war never cease, and in the darkness between the stars, the battlefields stretch into infinity. The Imperium is a flickering candle against the storm, its light fragile, its flame threatened by the forces that conspire to snuff it out. And yet, despite it all, humanity endures, not because it is strong, not because it is just, but because it must. It is a species that has forgotten peace, that knows only the sword and the gun. It does not falter, even as its body withers, and its mind breaks beneath the weight of uncounted centuries of war. The Imperium is an empire of martyrs, of warriors who march into battle, knowing their cause is doomed, yet still they fight, not for victory, not for salvation, but because there is no alternative. It is a civilization that should have collapsed long ago, yet through sheer force of will, it lingers on, defying the inevitability of its own demise. As we close this first chapter, we leave the Imperium as we found it on the brink of destruction, standing defiant against a universe that seeks to erase it. The Emperor's dream is long dead, his people ruled by fear and dogma, yet his Imperium remains, a monument to stubborn resilience and tragic destiny. How long it can last, none can say. Perhaps it will crumble under the weight of its own corruption, or perhaps it will endure, reshaped by fire and blood into something new. Only time will tell. But this is only the beginning. The history of the 41st millennium is long, and its secrets are many. There are ancient wars yet to be uncovered, forgotten truths buried beneath centuries of dogma, and legends of heroes and villains who have shaped the fate of the galaxy. For every battle fought in the present, there are echoes of conflicts long past, the ripples of history shaping the tides of war yet to come. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the origins of this vast and terrible universe. We have seen the Imperium as it stands. But what of the past? What of the events that set mankind on this path? Of the forces that shaped the galaxy into what it has become? To understand the present, we must first look to the past. Next time, we journey back to the age before the Imperium, to the dawn of time itself, and to the rise of the ancient powers that still shape the galaxy today. The war has not ended. It has only just begun.